Welcome back, ladies. My mother would often joke whenever she saw me dressed the way she wanted. To her, it was all amusing. To me, it was a nightmare that seemed to have no end. It all started because of one stupid mistake. I had been caught shoplifting a few items from a department store. Nothing expensive, nothing worth turning my life upside down over. Or so I thought. I expected to be grounded, maybe lose my allowance, or get extra chores around the house. Instead, my mother came up with a punishment unlike anything I could have imagined. She decided that from that day forward, whenever I was at home, I would live as a girl. At first, I thought she was joking. She wasn't. The very next day, she came home carrying several shopping bags filled with dresses, skirts, blouses, shoes, cosmetics, and more lingerie than I thought existed in the world. My name was Mike. According to my mother, that didn't matter anymore. Whenever I wore the clothes she bought me, she called me Melissa, and she expected everyone in the house to do the same. Months passed. Every afternoon after school, I would rush home with a knot in my stomach, knowing exactly what waited for me. As soon as I walked through the door, I had to change out of my regular clothes and put on whatever feminine outfit my mother had chosen for me that day. Sometimes it was a floral dress. Sometimes a skirt and blouse. Sometimes something so frilly and embarrassing that I could barely look at myself in the mirror. There was always makeup. There was always jewelry. There was always a lecture about posture, manners, and acting ladylike. My greatest fear was that someone from school would find out. If my friends ever discovered what was happening, my life would be over. The thought haunted me every day. I stopped inviting people over. I stopped hanging out after school. I stopped participating in almost everything I used to enjoy. The punishment slowly swallowed my entire life. Even my 14th birthday became a disaster. Instead of inviting my friends, my mother organized a party filled with women from her workplace. Every single one of them seemed to find the situation hilarious. They complimented my dress. They adjusted my makeup. They laughed every time I blushed. And when it came time for presents, they gave me exactly what I feared most. More dresses. More accessories. More reminders that there was no escape. The worst part wasn't even my mother. It was my younger brother, Danny. Before all this started, I used to tease him constantly. I was the older brother, stronger and more confident. Now the tables had completely turned. Danny never let me forget it. Every day, he made jokes. Every day, he found new ways to embarrass me. He had secretly taken dozens of pictures of me dressed up. Whenever I got angry, he'd remind me that he could show them to my friends whenever he wanted. One click, one message, one social media post. That was all it would take. And he knew it. My parents had been divorced for years, but I couldn't turn to my father for help. He barely visited. He rarely called. Even if he believed me, I doubted he'd do much more than argue with Mom for a few minutes before disappearing again. Then, unexpectedly, something happened. Dad called. He wanted to spend the weekend with me. Just the two of us. Camping. Fishing. The way we used to. For the first time in months, I felt genuinely happy. A whole weekend away from dresses. Away from makeup. Away from being Melissa. I could finally just be Mike again. As the weekend approached, I kept expecting the plan to fall apart. Dad had canceled before. He could easily cancel again. But he didn't. Saturday morning arrived. Everything was ready. Then I walked into my bedroom. And my heart dropped. Lying neatly across my bed was an outfit. Not just any outfit. The pink chiffon party dress from my birthday. Alongside it sat matching heels, sheer stockings, a satin slip, a bra, panties, and even a girdle. For a moment, I simply stared. Surely there had been some mistake. Surely Mom couldn't expect me to wear that in front of Dad. I rushed downstairs. Mom, she appeared almost instantly. It was obvious she had been waiting for this moment. Her smile confirmed it. "What's wrong?" she asked innocently. I pointed toward my room. "You can't seriously expect me to wear that." "Why not?" "Because Dad's coming." She shrugged. "And he can't see me like this." Her expression softened slightly, though I could still see amusement dancing in her eyes. "Why not, Melissa?" "Because he'll know." "Know what?" that you've been making me do this." She crossed her arms thoughtfully. "Actually, I've been thinking about that." A feeling of dread settled into my stomach. "What do you mean?" "I don't want your father causing unnecessary problems." I didn't like where this conversation was heading. "So, when he arrives, you're going to tell him the truth." For a brief moment, hope flickered inside me. Then she continued, "You're going to tell him that dressing like a girl was your idea." The hope vanished instantly.
No.
Her smile disappeared. "No. I'm not lying to him." The room suddenly felt colder. "You'll do exactly what I tell you." "I won't." The words had barely left my mouth before her hand struck my cheek. The slap echoed through the room. I stumbled backward in shock. My face burned. Tears instantly filled my eyes. She stepped closer. "If you don't cooperate," she said quietly, "I'll invite every boy from your softball team over here." My stomach twisted. "I'll show them pictures." She knew exactly where to attack. My fear, my humiliation, my entire secret. I knew she wasn't bluffing. When she left the room, I collapsed onto the bed. I couldn't stop imagining what Dad would think. He had always been proud of me. He cheered at my games, bragged about my athletic achievements, told everyone how tough I was. What would he say when he saw me standing there in a pink dress? Would he laugh? Would he be angry? Would he be disappointed? The questions tore through my mind. Eventually, I realized I had no choice. With trembling hands, I began putting on the outfit. The lingerie first, then the stockings, then the dress itself. As I struggled with the zipper, my bedroom door suddenly swung open.
"Danny."
"Of course." He grinned immediately. "Well, look who's getting pretty." I ignored him. That only encouraged him further. "I can't wait to see Dad's face." "Get out. Maybe I'll start calling you his daughter." "Leave." But he stayed, watching, laughing, commenting on every little thing. When I finally managed to zip the dress completely, he burst into laughter. Needless to say, that didn't improve my mood. After he eventually wandered away, I sat at my vanity and applied the makeup my mother expected. Then came the wig, then the jewelry, then the perfume. Each step felt like another layer of humiliation. By the time Mom returned for inspection, I barely recognized the person staring back from the mirror. She adjusted my lipstick, straightened a lock of hair, stepped back, and smiled. "You look beautiful." I felt sick. My mother had transformed me into someone I didn't recognize, someone I didn't want to be. Yet somehow she seemed proud, as if this entire situation were completely normal. I stood there silently while she admired her work. Meanwhile, all I could think about was the sound of a car pulling into the driveway. Dad would be here soon. And when he arrived, my life might change forever. One way or another. I'll continue the story in a completely rewritten style with unique wording, keeping it long form and removing any timestamps. I sat alone in my bedroom after Mom walked away, trying to make sense of everything that had happened. The house felt strangely quiet now, but my mind was louder than ever. Dad was gone. The one person I had been counting on to rescue me had driven away without me. I stared at the closed bedroom door and wondered if I deserved any of this. Maybe this was all punishment for the stupid mistake that started everything. Maybe if I hadn't taken those things from the store, none of this would have happened. To distract myself, I reached for one of the fashion magazines Mom kept leaving around my room. At first, I used to throw them away. Then I started flipping through them out of boredom. Now, if I was being completely honest, I sometimes found myself studying them. That realization bothered me more than anything. I slowly turned the pages. Beautiful models smiled back at me from every advertisement. They wore elegant dresses in every color imaginable. One dress immediately caught my attention. It was made of bright green satin decorated with tiny white patterns. The sleeves were short and puffed slightly at the shoulders. A wide sash wrapped around the waist and tied into a large bow at the back. The skirt flared outward gracefully. I found myself imagining what it would feel like to wear it. The thought made me immediately close the magazine. Then, after a few moments, I opened it again. Another dress appeared on the next page. This one was soft lavender with darker floral designs woven throughout the fabric. The material looked incredibly light, almost floating around the model as she walked. I could almost imagine how it would feel brushing against my hands. The more I looked, the more uncomfortable I became. Why was I paying attention to these things? Why was I even noticing details like fabric and colors? A few months ago, I wouldn't have cared. Now I knew the difference between chiffon, satin, lace, and silk. I hated that. I hated what my life had become. Turning another page, I found an outfit that immediately grabbed my attention. It was a sleek black dress with white accents around the collar and sleeves. A narrow belt hugged the waist, and the material was slightly transparent, revealing hints of the elegant slip worn underneath. For some reason, I found myself staring at it longer than the others. Then I imagined myself wearing it. The realization hit me like a punch to the stomach. I dropped the magazine onto the bed. "What is wrong with me?" I muttered. Just then, Danny burst into the room. His grin told me immediately that he was enjoying every second of my misery. "Dad's here," he announced. My stomach tightened instantly. The moment I had been dreading had finally arrived. I slowly stood and made my way toward the hallway. From around the corner, I could hear Dad entering through the back door. "Hey, buddy," he called out cheerfully. Danny immediately ran to greet him. I heard laughter. Then Dad asked the question I had feared. "Where's Mike?" Silence followed. Then more laughter. Mom's voice drifted through the house. "Michael? Come say hello." I closed my eyes. For one brief moment, I considered running away before he saw me. But there was nowhere to go. Taking a deep breath, I stepped into the room. My heels clicked softly against the floor. The skirt swayed around my knees. For several seconds, nobody said a word.
Dad simply stared.
The expression on his face changed from confusion to disbelief. Finally, he spoke. "Mike." His voice sounded distant. "What is this?" I couldn't answer. Every word seemed trapped in my throat. "Why are you dressed like that?" Mom immediately stepped in. "Go ahead, dear. Tell your father." I knew exactly what she expected. The threat still echoed in my mind. Pictures. Friends. Humiliation. My voice barely worked. "I like dressing this way." The lie felt terrible. Dad stared at me as if he didn't recognize the person standing before him. "What?" "I like wearing dresses." The room felt impossibly small. I wanted the floor to swallow me whole. Dad looked completely stunned. Then he turned toward Mom. "How could you allow this?" Mom sighed dramatically. "You think I'm happy about it? I've tried everything. This is what he wants." I couldn't believe how easily she lied. Dad looked back at me. His disappointment hurt more than anything else. The expression in his eyes felt like a knife twisting in my chest. Mom wasn't finished. She continued building her story. According to her, I wanted a new name, a new identity, a completely different life. Each lie sounded more ridiculous than the last. Yet somehow nobody questioned her. Not even Dad. Danny certainly wasn't helping. He happily joined in, adding comments and jokes whenever possible. Every word pushed me deeper into humiliation. Finally, Dad snapped. "That's enough." Everyone fell silent.
He pointed toward me.
"Go change into normal clothes." Hope surged through me. For a split second, I thought everything might finally be over. Then Mom calmly explained that all my clothes were supposedly unavailable. Dad's expression darkened. He clearly wanted to argue. Instead, he looked at Danny. "How would you like to go camping?" Danny nearly exploded with excitement. Before Mom could object, he was already halfway out the door. Dad looked at me one final time. There was something he wanted to say. I could see it. But whatever it was, he never spoke the words. A few moments later, I heard the engine start. Then the sound faded into the distance. And he was gone. The moment the car disappeared, Mom began laughing. To her, the entire situation had been entertaining. To me, it felt like my world had collapsed. Tears poured down my face. "I hate you," I shouted. For the first time since this nightmare began, I meant it. Without thinking, I ran. I rushed out the front door and down the sidewalk. My vision blurred from tears. My dress fluttered around me as I ran. People probably stared. I didn't care. Nothing mattered anymore. Then I heard familiar voices. My blood froze. Several boys stood ahead of me. Former teammates. Former friends. Every one of them attended my school. For a moment, nobody moved. Then recognition spread across their faces. The laughter began immediately. Questions followed. Mocking comments. Whispers. The nightmare I had feared for months was happening right in front of me. My secret was gone. One of them stepped closer. Another pointed at my makeup. Someone laughed about the dress. Within seconds, they surrounded me. I felt trapped. Terrified.
Alone.
The teasing quickly became physical. Someone tugged at my sleeve. Another reached for my skirt. Panic surged through my body. I tried pushing them away. That only encouraged them. Everything became chaos. Then suddenly Mom appeared. She pushed through the crowd and pulled them away from me. The boys backed off, still laughing, still staring, still collecting memories they would undoubtedly share with everyone they knew. As we walked back home, I felt completely defeated. There was no point hiding anymore. Soon the entire school would know. By Monday, everyone would be talking. The athlete who wore dresses. The boy who looked like a girl. The jokes would never end. Back in my room, Mom acted as though nothing unusual had happened. She fixed my makeup, adjusted my hair, straightened my dress. Then she smiled proudly.
There.
Much better. I looked into the mirror. I barely recognized myself anymore. The person staring back felt like a stranger. Meanwhile, Mom continued discussing shopping trips, dresses, accessories, and future plans as if they were the most normal topics in the world. I listened quietly, not because I agreed, not because I accepted it, but because I was exhausted. The fight had drained everything out of me. That morning I had expected to spend the weekend fishing beside my father, sitting around a campfire, and forgetting all my problems. Instead, I was sitting alone in my room wondering whether my old life had disappeared forever. The days that followed felt strangely unreal. Every morning, another outfit appeared waiting for me. Every day seemed to pull me further from the person I used to be. And with each passing day, holding on to who I truly was became a little more difficult. For the first time, I found myself wondering whether life would ever return to normal, or if this strange new reality was becoming permanent.